Well, hey there, friends. Chip Studer reporting to you from the home pad here at Saddlewood Drive. I know it's been a little while since I've put some fresh material on the channel, and I apologize for that. But I just want to be very candid with you and let you know that one of the reasons for that is that, truthfully, my attitude had just been in a terrible place over the last few days, or the last couple of weeks, really. And there's several reasons for that, some outside pressure that don't really need to discuss here, but you can imagine that current events don't help anything. You know, should I wear a mask? Do I don't wear a mask? Can I go shopping? Can I eat in a restaurant? What do I do? Do we want me to stay home? Can I go out? All these things that are going on up and down. You just don't know one day from the next. And not that that's any excuse, but certainly it applies pressure, and if I'm not careful, for me that causes my attitude to just go down the tubes, and certainly that's where I've been over the last couple weeks. But the good news is, coming off a great weekend, Cindy and I had a good time. Had gone down to Wytheville, Virginia, a little while, just maybe an hour or so south of here, to ride the New River Trail. If you're not familiar, the New River Trail is a Rails to Trails project. The Commonwealth of Virginia State Park System manages it. It's about 47 miles, I think, the whole trail. We looked at a 5-mile section of it and tried to cover that. Started one day in Foster Falls and attempted to make it all the way to Austinville was the next stop down. Didn't quite make it, got about 3 miles out, and decided it was time to come back, turn around and head back to the truck. It was going to be a 10-mile round trip if we'd have done the whole thing. At any rate, it was 6 miles the first day, and then the second day we drove to Austinville and tried to go back in the other way, and we didn't want to push ourselves. We had a little time constraint on things. So it was a mile and a half, maybe 2 miles in and then back out. So it was an easier day the second day, but nonetheless, it was an event. And if you follow me on Facebook, you see some of the still shots where we documented the first day. That 6-miler was a job for me. It was work. Cindy on her bike, fairly easy ride for her, and she rode along beside me and sometimes behind me, sometimes in front of me, and was a good encouragement for me. But with the equipment I'm using and the shape I'm in, I was chugging along, trying to get that 6-miler in. I certainly had all I wanted at the end of that day. But you know, the Lord used that to teach me and to show me some things, and He certainly rewarded Cindy and I for our efforts along the way. We saw some wildlife, saw a baby fawn on the side of the road that was just born, probably within the last 24 hours, right there on the side of the trail. That was a neat experience to be able to see that. Saw a couple of good-sized does bouncing along, running, and certainly the sights along the river were just incredible to see. Bumped into some good people along the way. Fun experience altogether, even though it was work. And as again, like I say, the Lord used that to teach me something about spiritual fitness, and that's kind of what I want to talk to you about this morning. That's what I want to share with you here today, very briefly, if I can. I got back to camp after that 6-miler Saturday evening, and sort of decompressing the day and thinking about it, and what could you do better? How could we mechanically make the bike a little better, a little easier to work? What physical conditioning, what could I do? Planning wise, what could we do to all of that, right? And then of course, in the midst of all of that, there's this ongoing conversation with God. God, what are you trying to say to me? What are you trying to teach me? And just at some point, I remember the old King James says, Paul writes, I buffet my body. And that's all I could remember. And this is one of these things. This is how I know God's real. This is how God speaks to me in a very personal way sometimes. And scripture comes alive to me. That's how I know God is real, because this is how this happens. All I remember is I buffet my body, which basically means, that I subject my body to outside forces. And I forget what Paul's talking about. So I start Googling around to find that verse. And eventually the Lord would lead me to 1 Corinthians chapter 9, a little passage here that is entitled Striving for a Crown in my Bible. In the New King James Version, it reads like this. 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 24 through 27 says, Do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but one receives a prize? Run in such a way that you may obtain it. And everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a perishable crown, but we for an imperishable crown. Therefore, I run thus, or I run like this, not with uncertainty. Thus I fight, or like this I fight. Not as one who beats the air, but I discipline my body. There's the phrase, but I discipline my body and bring it into subjection, lest, and listen to this, it's important, lest when I have preached to others, I myself should become disqualified. I got to tell you, when I read that hit me like a gut punch, because that's what I've been doing for the last, I hope you enjoyed the Along the Trail series. And if you haven't, I highly recommend you go back and check those videos out. Check that series out as I was riding my bike in different locations and sharing the truth with you. Good message. But I got to tell you that even the last video or two that I was making, the person that you see on the camera was not necessarily the person that I was when we shut the camera off, because my attitude was not at all what it should be for somebody in my position, somebody who proclaims the truth and who wants to lead by example. So I just want to be very candid with you and let you know that your Sunday school teacher, your pastor, your favorite personality, the national preacher that you listen to, all those people are human. They're made of flesh, just like me and you. And let's not put them falsely on a pedestal, okay? Because none of us deserves to be there. But those of us who are in those positions are challenged to lead by example, to live lives worthy of the gospel. And so the Lord challenged my heart in that way. And I want to share this lesson with you this morning, because when I share with you, it's an accountability tool for me as well. And it just solidifies it in my heart. And so as God has taught me this lesson, let me now relay it to you. Paul says here in verse 24, do you not know that those who run in a race all run, but one receives the prize? Run in such a way that you may obtain it. Now let's be clear. Paul's not saying that we need to compete for our salvation. He's not saying that at all. Right? But he is saying that those of us who run in the race, those of us who have entered the race, nobody drug you into the race, but you at some point in your life committed to Christ. You made a decision to follow Christ. You entered the race. Now that you're in the race, run hard. Run to win. Have a good attitude when you do it. Spiritual fitness is just as important as physical fitness, more important really than physical fitness and mental fitness. And I've got to tell you, when I was out there on that trail, grinding and cranking my handbike, I knew that I needed to be in better physical shape than I am. And I'm working on that. And I've been working on that. Been in a weight loss program for almost close to a year now. And being fairly successful at that. Not bragging, just telling you this is the truth. This is what so I've been concerned about that, and I've been taking steps in that direction. And I've been even treating that like a competition with myself. Just, bettering the numbers every time. And as long as my numbers get better than my numbers were last time, I don't care about anybody else's numbers. You with me? And so that's what Paul's saying here. That's what he's encouraging us to do, is to approach our spiritual journey like a race, like a competition. And this is what I know about racers. I was a cross-country runner when I was in high school. I'm a huge race fan now when it comes to stock car racing. It doesn't matter if you're a track star, if you're racing roller skates, if you're a wheelchair, it doesn't matter. The one thing that all racers have in common is they're striving for a personal best. Yeah, they're in a race and they want to win it. And all of us want to win the race that we're in. But more than anything, we want to know that we did our best, that we left it all on the track. That's what Paul's encouraging us to do here spiritually. Is leave it all out there. Okay? Everyone who competes for the prize is temperate in all things. Is temperate in all things. Moderation, in control of everything. You think about it in terms of a diet, right? If you're going to lose weight, if you're going to maintain the cholesterol numbers where you want them, if you're going to do all those things that dieting does for you, then you have a plan, and you eat according to that plan. You eat at a certain time. You eat certain foods you stay away from. Certain foods, you can have a little of them, but you don't want them every day. And it's the same way spiritually. There are things we get exposed to, whether we want to or not sometimes. But we do our best to stay away from them, from certain things. We must expose ourselves spiritually to the Word of God. We must find time to spend in prayer, these type of things. And so we have a plan that we live by. We're temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a perishable crown. See, when they compete, especially back in this day, there would be a crown of laurels that they would be maybe wearing on their head, or given some palm branches or something like that, along with whatever gold or silver, metal, all those things. No matter what it is, it's perishable. It's going to be gone one day. But the crown that we're competing for, okay, and again, Jesus won that crown for us. Ephesians 2:8-9 tells us that we've been saved by grace through faith, that it's not of works at all, that it's a gift of God. So he won that victory for us, and there'll be a day when we receive a crown, an imperishable crown, that we get to spend eternity in heaven with Jesus. What a motivation that is. What a thing to strive for. Therefore, I run thus, not with uncertainty. Wasn't sure what that meant, but as I'm reading some commentary and studying about it, here's one thing it means. A runner has a lane, a defined lane that he stays in. He's got a starting line, he's got a finishing line. So he knows where the race starts, he knows where it ends, he knows what lane he's got a defined lane that he must stay in. He's got certain rules that he competes by, all of those things. And so there's a plan. There's a spiritual plan. There's a plan that's given to us. There's guidelines in this book. There's boundaries that we don't cross one way or the other. Okay, there's a starting point and there's a finishing point. And each of us is somewhere in between the starting line and the finishing line. All right, and all that matters is that we are headed in the right direction and that we're within our own boundaries, that we're within the boundaries that God set for us. Then Paul changes the metaphor. He says, I fight thus, or I fight like this, not as one who beats the air. At first I thought he was talking about shadow boxing, but as I read the commentary, it's not shadow boxing at all. It's the wild punch that he's talking about. I know some of you are MMA fans. I used to be a pretty good boxing fan back in my day. It was Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier and George Foreman all competing for the heavyweight championship of the world. And boy, they would jab, and they would all of a sudden, here comes that boom, that big right hander, right? And if a boxer would telegraph that punch and the other guy saw it coming, when you throw that punch out there, the other guy knows it's coming and he can duck, and all you're doing is punching the air, wasting energy. You throw that wild punch. Paul says, I don't fight like that. Okay, when I throw a punch, it lands. Okay, and who is he fighting against? Who's he fighting with? Well, we're going to find that out. Thus I fight, not as one who beats the air, but I discipline my body. There's that expression, I buffet my body. But I discipline my body and bring it into subjection, lest when I have preached to others, I myself become disqualified. Who is he fighting against? He's making reference to my body, the flesh. When my flesh gets out of control, I buffet it. I subject it to pressure. And I do that so that I can become stronger spiritually. And so sometimes, the pressure shows up. And I've got a choice. I can turn and run from it. I can face it. I can deal with it. I can allow myself to be exposed to certain situations and choose my response to those situations. The Spirit lives inside of me, and he produces the fruit of, what is it? In Galatians, you know it. Peace, patience, love, self-control. That's out of order, but those are some of the things, right? that the Spirit produces. And if I'm gonna approach my spiritual journey as an athletic endeavor, then I'm going to look at those as opportunities. I'm going to look at those tough moments as opportunities to strengthen my spirit. And that's going to mean that I'm going to have to beat my flesh, that I'm going to have to fight against my flesh. I'm going to have to force my mouth to stay shut, make my tongue be tender and kind and gentle when I speak to other people. This thing between my ears, this brain, I can operate that thing. God gave me the ability to do that. And so it's up to me. I know I've run longer than I've normally run. And I hope that I haven't lost you because of that. But I want to encourage you. I want you to use this verse here, this passage of Scripture, just as God used it in my life. I pray that He uses it in your life. And let me just close with this, where He says the reason that He does this is because He doesn't want to preach and become disqualified. God, I pray right now that you would help me to practice what I preach. God, as I'm transparent with these people, help them to understand that I'm not here glorifying sin at all, but that I just want to be authentic, and that I want them to see you in a very real way. So, Lord, I pray you bless them as you've blessed me with the truth and with grace. Show them your love. And your peace. And I pray it in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you for listening.